Morning Call, broadcasting live from the CNBC-TV18 Motilal Oswal studios in Mumbai.
Good morning. You're with us here on a fresh new edition of Bazaar Morning Call. We are coming to you live from the CNBC-TV18 Motilal Oswal studios. I'm Prashant. With me, my colleagues Sonia and Nigel. Morning, guys.
Hi, good morning. We actually have lots to, watch out for today. I mean, global cues are good. There are a lot of big earnings coming through. So I think we have our hands full today.
Hands full. I mean, everything full. I mean, it's like, but the market for the last couple of days has been dithering. And the good thing is that this morning we have a bit of positive, handoff from Wall Street. So I think today will be a good test whether, there's something which is roiling the markets here in India. Things will move back on. It often happens that in weeks of F&O expiry, the Nifty expiry is when it really started to show up. Markets dither, and especially at all-time highs, that kind of price action is not completely uncommon. So, as I said, because overnight cues are good, and the overnight cues are good because there is some visibility on this debt ceiling resolution. We had, U.S. President Biden, who basically came out with the Republican leaders and said that we will find a solution. Yeah, this debt ceiling business, I've not paid very much attention because it comes every year. It's like the boy who called wolf, and nothing comes off it. It goes to the brink and then it's resolved. This time we have visibility at least 5 or 6 days before that this is essentially going to come through. The S&P was up about 1.2%. The Nasdaq was up about 1.3%. The yields rose a little bit. The dollar index is something I want to point out too. It got to past the 103 levels and then it dipped a little bit, but it still was up 0.25%. We left off at 102.89. The dynamic is interesting. Data in the US is showing that that economy is doing much better than holding up much better than what many expected. On the other hand, the two other large group economic blocks, which is one is Europe and the other is China, growth is not so good. China especially. So the dollar, money is going into the dollar and the dollar is rising. Many are of the view that it will rise against emerging market currencies as well. Let's come to the market here in India. Nifty and Bank Nifty sold off yesterday, but in the last 30 or 40 minutes of trade, we did pull back. We closed off the lows. The small cap index ended about 0.6% higher. The mid caps also came up. The broader markets basically did much better as compared to the Nifty and the large caps. The question is, if this is just a pullback, what we've seen over the last couple of days within a broader uptrend, even now I would say, actually we've not corrected that much. To be fair, this seems to be the case, that this is just a pullback within what is a broadly uptrend, a broader uptrend. And I think today will be a good test case because you've got a positive global cues. Supports for the market lay at the 20-day moving average, which stands at 18,053. If you want to look at whether, short-term markets are turning from an uptrend to a downtrend, a 20-day moving average always comes in handy. That should not be broken on the downside. And closer to those levels, I think it would make sense to try and buy the dip. Even if you get a flat close slightly lower, that will be great. Bank Nifty's low yesterday, which is 43,446, becomes important. It would be great if the uptrend is intact and this level holds. Even if there is a test, the level holds. Talking about financials and banks, SBI results, I think that will refocus attention on financials because, largest bank in the country and what they say across, each of their verticals are equal or bigger than many individual entities, financial entities there. So you'll get a very broad-based picture of, and of course, outlook as well, how credit growth, deposit growth, etc., how that environment is really panning out. Financials, you need financials to participate for the Nifty index to do well as well. Sonia.
Absolutely. And, this morning looks like it's going to be a very strong start. But as you said, the market has been facing a bit of resistance at that 18,300 to 18,400 mark. Would be interesting to see if that gets taken out anytime soon. Big earnings today, I think that will be front and center for the market. There's SBI, there's ITC, there's Bata. There are also, a lot of other companies, United Spirits, Indigo, etc., coming out with their numbers. So we'll be tracking all of that very closely. For SBI, it's expected to be a good set actually this time. Good traction in loan growth and improvement in asset quality, best in class in the PSU banking space. So that will pretty much be the barometer, sentiment barometer for the way forward in that space. And for ITC, let's not forget it has been one of the strongest stocks this year. It's up almost 30% this year already and expected to be a strong showing this time. Mangalam was telling us that there is a growth of almost 12 to 13% in the cigarette business that, the street is expecting for ITC. So in that context, both these numbers could sort of, be the anchor on which the market sort of moves forward. Let's wait and watch. Good cues from across the globe. The Dow was up 400 points yesterday. And the House Speaker, Kevin McCarthy, said that he doesn't believe that the US will default on its debt. So perhaps those fears are receding as well. We will, of course, be tracking the markets very closely. In that context, there was hardly any flows yesterday. FIs net bought about 150 crores. DIs sold about 200 crores. And it was second straight day that the Nifty was under pressure. So do the dips get bought today? And once we start off in the green, what happens then? Can we get past that hurdle of 18,300, 18,400? Let's see. I think midday is when, a couple of these large numbers come through. And then perhaps the market could latch on to that.
Well, indeed, Sonia. Second half of the day belongs to SBI as well as ITC. But in the last couple of days, what we've seen is not significant shorting on the index. We've corrected a little bit. Even yesterday, we saw a little bit of a downtake. But that's because there's unwinding of positions both on the Nifty as well as on the Nifty Bank, close to around 7 to around 8% odd. Trade set up this morning. The crucial part is, will those call writers get stuck on the wrong side? It's the Nifty weekly expiry. And call writing has been done by gay abandon. It's been too easy in the last few days. Will those call writers get stuck, given that we're likely to see some green to kickstart trade? Very, very important. SBI, from around 1 p.m. or the PSU banking index as well as banking names, they'll be driven by what SBI delivers and what it has to say as well. And amidst all these positive global cues that we had overnight, the dollar index moving to around 103, that's getting a little bit of a worry. Hopefully, it stalls in its path out there. What do the FIs do? Well, they bought for the 15th straight session, which is good news, right? But it's the lowest inflow that we've seen in the last 15 sessions. Hopefully, they continue with their buying ways because you don't want that number to dip into the red. In the F&O market, well, they added close to around 4,000 short contracts odd. The problem is, at higher levels, we'll see call writing. More than 1 lakh call contracts did get written even in yesterday's trading session. Now, a few days ago, we were talking about the PCR going to 1.34. And that's normally the upper end of the band. Now, post this small 200-point correction that we've seen and the kind of call writing that we've seen, the PCR has come down to around 0.83 odd. Remember, the lower end of the band is around 0.7 odd. And the call writing, just take a look at that. The 18,200 call writers, they're going to be in a bit of trouble today, provided, we don't get past that 18,250, because the 18,200 call, well, they are playing for that 18,250 odd level holding out. So the resistance zone becomes 18,250 to around 18,300. On the downside, I'm looking at yesterday's low. We bounced off 18,115. So that becomes a bit of a support for today's session itself on the Nifty. Let's pull those levels up. On the Nifty Bank as well, yesterday's low becomes a bit of a support. On the upside, closer to around 44,000 odd, that'll be a bit of a resistance zone. So we have our markers. SGX Nifty is suggesting 30-40 point gap up. I'll tell you what, if you start more or less flattish, it's giving you a bit of an entry opportunity. But if you gap up 50-60 points, then the play could be over out there, because those that took long positions yesterday will look to book out. Maybe buying the intraday dip and hoping that SBI and ITC don't disappoint, then maybe it could be favorable. But that 18,115 is an important mark on the downside for the day's session itself.
All right, Nigel, we'll see how it goes. We've got a 40-odd point uptick is on the SGX Nifty at this point in time. Well, let's quickly tell you what's lined up in the first 30 minutes of the show. We get you updates from markets across the globe. Mark Matthews of Bank Julius Baer and Company will join in to discuss the global trade setup. Our research team will bring you CNBC-TV18 list of top 10 stocks of the day. At 8:30 this morning, we do a fundamental stock check. Deepan Mehta of Elixir Equities will join in for that.
Talk about in the next 2.5 hours. So let's kick it off with some equity views coming in. Sunil Tirumalai is our guest for the day. He joins in from UBS. He says, while focusing on fundamentals and valuations, the upside is capped for Indian markets due to middling fundamentals outlook and high relative valuations. UBS is underweight on India amongst the emerging market universe. They continue to prefer banks given relatively cheaper valuations and benign asset quality outlook, while they are underweight on metals, real estate and consumer discretionaries.
Okay, let's get you some money market views as well. This is on the rupee. Parul Mittalson of Standard Chartered Bank says the dollar INR saw upward pressure on dollar strength and USD buying by PSU banks, though impact was partly offset by much better than expected April trade deficit data and renewed FPI equity flows. For next week, Parul expects the dollar INR to trade in the 82.1 to 82.75 to a dollar range, reserve building efforts by the RBI are likely to be the key Forex drivers from here out.
Okay, and on the bonds, she says that the domestic bonds rallied last week despite a rise in the US rates due to improved domestic liquidity and the India's CPI cooling off. They expect the Indian benchmark 10-year trade in 6.9 to 7.1 range next week, and will closely be watching the RBI steps on liquidity, dividend announcement due tomorrow, and any news on the monsoon front.
Well, we have a lot of stock-specific action for you, and we'll get to that in just a wee bit from now in our special Talk 10 segment. We are looking at Thermax, Honeywell Automation, Jindal Stainless, JK Tyre, Endurance Technologies, and Restaurant Brands Asia. Their stocks on the back of positive news flow. On the flip side, you have a couple of weak earnings that came out. REC, Whirlpool, Railtel Corp, and Vedant Fashion as well went to that fundraise.
Okay.